And we are the Coalition, loud and proud, outrage porn-free, civilly disobedient media broadcasting live on the worldwide Coalition Radio Network, well, at coalitionradionetwork.com, facebook.com/the Coalition Radio, on the mighty Twitter at Coalition_radio, the old mothership at coalitionradio.us, and of course, all our new material, the written word, press conferences with a governor and a governor in waiting, as well as video interviews like we're going to be doing tonight, end up at coalitionradionetwork.com. Well, it's that time of the year. Folks who actually believe that they have the right to engage in self-defense, that they actually have the right to bear arms, that there's a constitution out there in Rhode Island and the United States at large that guarantees them that right, begin now to deal with the influx of folks who, well, don't believe they have that right. However, that right is based on natural law, however, that right is based on, as I mentioned, both our federal and our state constitution. Those who would seek solace in other amendments, as I tease them a lot and as I tease my other friends, there's a whole wide world of constitutional amendments out there guaranteed to protect your rights as a citizen. Joining us tonight is someone who has clearly qualified for what we call repeat offender status here in the Coalition. She's joined us in the our earlier days at the fine folks at Go Local Prov, and then she's already joined us once here at Coalition Radio Network 3.0, is Brenda Jacob. Now, Brenda is going to inform me she just got, or a few months ago, since we last spoke, has been elected to chair of something called, and I'll let her clarify the title, but it's basically chairperson of, I'll call it the body that oversees and works for and on behalf of Rhode Island sportsmen at multiple levels. Brenda, welcome back to the Coalition. And wouldn't it be nice if we could just cut together once a year or a couple times a year and do poetry readings or maybe arts and craft class or, something fun as opposed to having to engage in this death battle for your and mine civil rights? That'd be kind of a hoot, wouldn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, it would. This is a stressful time of year. I feel like I'm stressed from now until the legislative session ends.
No, and for folks who haven't been activists, understand that particularly in a state, in a heathen state like Rhode Island, anchored, if you will, by Halitosis Hall, all credit to Rudy Cheeks, up there on Smith Hill, you live in a perpetual fear. It's sort of, imagine this, if you lived in Transylvania and after dark you knew that there were vampires roaming the world. This is that on steroids, because from the moment that opening gavel, if you will, right after the self-congratulatory, self-indulgent, mercifully self-unaware, State House goes into motion, if you will, then you are on literally a 7 by 24-hour death watch, because there is no rhyme, no reason. The powers are exclusive to that governing body, the wise Solons of Rhode Island, who can literally do pretty much just about anything they want at this point. And it is only in the case of overwhelming public opinion and or quote-unquote fear of not getting reelected to their, so that they're not able to participate in the shrimp and martini sets after hours, that they, I won't use the term respect, that they fear or have a moment where they actually reflect upon, well, what folks like you and I want. First off, Brenda, again, thank you for joining us tonight on such short notice. Talk to us first about the organization that you've just been elected chairperson, president of, and what their role is, if you will, in the Rhode Island greater, I'll call it sports, hunting, fishing, gaming, recreational world.
Yeah, so it's the Federated of Rhode Island Sportsmen's Club. And what we do is we are very involved in the Second Amendment. We are involved in hunting, fishing, conservation, land management, hiking, biking, trail maintenance, everything to do with outdoor sportsmen. Unfortunately, a lot of our focus has had to be changed to legislation just so that we can help preserve a lot of these things that are at risk. So that does bump us up to being very involved legislatively right now. But we'd love, like you said, to get back to hunting and fishing and youth development and safety and all the things that we really enjoy. But unfortunately, this time of the year, we have to concentrate on the legislative session.
Right. And something I'd like to take a little bit of a different focus tonight, because, we've talked on a number of occasions, and we're throughout the legislative season, we'll replay these episodes about self-defense, about the right to bear arms. But there's also a larger world out there, and we'll refer to that as the sportsman's world. And sportsmen and women play a larger-than-life role in what we've become accommodated to as called the Rhode Island lifestyle. Again, I've said this on the show many times, for a number of unique reasons. Imagine this 44-mile-tall little plot of land up here in the Northeast in New England, being so blessed. You are never more than a half hour or so ride from some sort of bay or ocean. You are never more than, say, a 45-minute ride on up to places like Burrowville and Foster and Gloucester, and the natural beauty and the life, if you will, the wildlife corridor and that they represent. It's an astonishing place to live. While at the same time, you're never more than 45 minutes away from, all the advantages, if you will, of city life, in the sense that we've got Brown and RISD, museums, art, music, great restaurants, or at least we did before the purge, right? But this astonishing, this mix, this soup, if you will, this recipe, all of this is within an hour or so of our lives, and we are so much better for that, even if you don't choose to participate in it, because of what I'll call the halo effect of this lifestyle and the impact it has on communities throughout the state, urban and rural. If you don't mind, work with me on this, Brenda. I want to start really from the most basics. What are some of the impacts, if you will, the benefits of the stewardship of open spaces that folks in the sporting community bring to us?
Well, let's start with the Pittman Robertson Act, and I want to credit my friend Jen Hurst to all her details. She actually gave me a detailed report today, which is going to help me to give you some information. In 2020, Rhode Island received $3,647 towards land management for DEM to purchase new land, manage habitats, do conservation programs. So a lot of times people don't realize when they're in a state managed property, that property was either actually purchased by us or it was refurbished by DEM through funds that come from the firearm community through the Pittman Robertson Act, which is an act that there is a 10% tax on all handguns. And there's another tax, 11% tax on ammunition, long guns, archery. So all that money throughout the United States is collected, and then each state gets money dependent upon how their acreage, their water bodies, inland water bodies, population, and the number of hunting and fishing licenses sold. So that's how they determine how each state gets money. And then that money, in turn, is earmarked for conservation, preservation, hunter safety, land management. So people don't realize that all of this land and open space that's in Rhode Island is because of the extra tax that we as sportsmen have paid throughout the years.
Mm-hmm. I might also add there's almost $3.7 million of this fund in a separate allocation towards sport fish restoration. So the sum and total of the money allocated to the state of Rhode Island for, again, as you mentioned, everything from sport fish stocking, everything, open spaces that we treasure so much. You're looking at almost $7.5 million that literally your community at large, through a variety of taxes and fees and excises and everything imaginable, right, are pouring right back into the community right here into Rhode Island. And that's 1 year. That's simply 1 year. And that's, interestingly enough, one of the higher, I'll say, per capita contributions in the country. I mean, it's interesting to me that Massachusetts, which is a much larger population, only gets about $2 million more. So, which is,
Right.
So we are intensely involved in this lifestyle. And so to diminish its contribution is also to diminish the potential for a number of the activities that folks who, let's be blunt, are politically opposed to sportsmen's activities benefit from directly. What other benefits does this lifestyle bring to Rhode Island in terms of tourism, money, education?
Well, we bring a lot of value. And, and that's kind of like what we're trying to do is we're going to try and rebrand ourselves, because a lot of people, when they see gun owners, they have us as flannel shirt, knuckle dragging, gun toting people. They don't realize that we're business owners, and they don't realize the value that we bring. So we started with the open space and all of the outdoor activities that we help to provide and maintain throughout the state for everybody. But let's talk about small business for a minute. There's roughly 110 small businesses in this state, and it's not just gun stores. That's another misconception. We have a large manufacturing sector. We have plating companies that plate. We have finishers, machine shops, manufacturers, pawn shops, estate services, sporting shops. There's a whole plethora of small businesses that depend on the firearm industry in this state. So we're not just bringing, beautiful open space and clean waters and hiking and biking and bird watching trails. We're also bringing a lot of value when it comes to revenue, as far as income taxes, property taxes, all the other stuff that comes with the small business community being the backbone of the state of Rhode Island. And that's another huge impact that people a lot of times take for granted. It's not just about the guns. It's about the whole package that we bring to the table, and the added, we're an asset to this state, and people need to realize that we have a big value. It's not just about a few, which they say is a few gun owners. There's thousands of us, and we are huge contributors to the lifestyle of Rhode Island.
Once that goes away, how easy is it to reimagine or recreate that? Once the funding goes away in these troubled times, once the open space goes away, is that something that can be just reinvented?
No, that's something that we're all going to lose forever. Think about the environmental impact if we don't have the money going into our open space. Think about all of the tax revenue. Like, let's face it, the gun industry has stayed strong because we are deemed essential. So that has stayed strong. So any revenue this state has been collecting in taxes throughout the pandemic, that's been us. That's been our small businesses that have been keeping everything going. So that is irreplaceable.
Let's talk about education. We live in a complex world where, literally in the case of Rhode Island and in eastern Massachusetts, the rural literally butts up right against the very urban. Guns are a part of this nation's DNA. How important is it for young people to become familiar with, to be trained, most importantly, to gain respect for firearms in the year 2021?
It's extremely valuable. And like we've seen during the pandemic, a lot of people were fearful and now have firearms in their home. There's a 58% increase in first-time firearm buyers in the state. And now a lot of these kids have not been afforded the opportunity to learn about gun safety. If I could make my own legislation, I think that I would develop a program. I wouldn't develop it because there's already several programs out there that would actually integrate firearm safety into school programs. Just like with Mothers Against Drunk Driving, they integrated the drunk driving program into school to teach kids about that. And then you have the bullying programs. They've integrated that into schools. I do not understand why we cannot integrate the same format into the schools on firearm safety, and touch upon, some of the issues that the kids are having. I think that ought to be a preventative way to stop any more tragedies from happening if you use the same format that these other programs have used and have been very successful.
And there was a time in the not so distant past when those programs existed, didn't they? Target shooting.
Yeah.
Again, you accomplished two or three things. Number one, again, folks, children, young people walk away with a healthy respect and understanding of firearms, which can, quite frankly, prevent tragedy. The worst thing imaginable is to have a first responder or someone who engages in sportsmanship to have firearms at home. By the way, the folks that I've met, and I believe this to be overwhelmingly true, are incredibly responsible about how they store firearms. But to not have that respect, to not have that understanding, means you're afraid of them, you're curious about them, you're, if you will, untested, and perhaps don't understand the importance of, if you will, proper storage, maintenance, cleaning, all of that. What have we lost because of that?
Well, there's a lot of levels that we've lost on. The kids, unfortunately, are the biggest, are the ones losing the most. There's a lot of opportunities for kids. If we start with the shooting sports, for example, there's a lot of opportunities out there. That is the most underutilized scholarship program in the United States. There's many colleges out there that kids can get free college by being involved in the shooting sports. We still have a league in Rhode Island. We still send kids out to the Olympic Training Center by invitation. We have kids that are invited to Air Force Academy, Coast Guard Academy, MIT, West Point. I want to open that door more for more kids. It is a respect issue. It's a sport that teaches respect, self-control. It can be an individual sport for those kids that might not be very athletic. I mean, there's so many benefits to the to introducing the youth into shooting sports. Then there's the civic aspect of it. We're not teaching enough of our history and how important the Constitution is and how important the Second Amendment is. That's a whole other issue that we could spend hours on, and the lack of learning and teaching our kids, how important our Second Amendment rights are. So, we're losing a lot, and I feel like we're not giving our youth the tools that they need to keep this country moving in the right direction. And that's very sad to me.
Right. Alicia Kelly, by the way, weighs in. She is of Scituate, and she talks about a number of sites in her community that have been infected. Right up in Burrillville, right near the Invenergy site, that would have been. How much of the protection is involved up in that neck of the state? Yet here we are again. I think this is our third year in a row. It's like an annual date, right? Here we are again, talking about some of the same issues. Right now, and we're getting off to an early start this year, which is a good thing, because a big part of this Little Networks activities are basically aimed at puncturing urban legends. So what's remarkable about this state is the high level of gun safety. I mean, Rhode Island, by definition, is a pretty safe place to be in terms of gun crime and gun accidents, isn't it?
Yes. Yes, and I feel like that's because we do have a well-balanced set of gun laws. There's enough. I always worry: are we gonna disarm so many people that we're gonna lose our safety? And that being said, or let me explain that better. Like, right now, people don't know who has a gun because there are concealed carry holders. People don't know if they have guns in their home, because of this. We're still allowed to have guns in our home. So I feel like that that protects us in a way. That's why I'm very against the gun-free school zones, because, you know, I do teach victims of domestic violence of firearm safety, and a lot of them get concealed carries. And if you now take away their safety to bring their children to school because their attacker now knows they're going to be disarmed, what do you say to that mom? What do you say to that mom? That's my biggest concern with these gun-free zones, is that you are going to take away that layer of protection. To dumb it really down. Okay, if you don't want to have a gun, go ahead and put a sign out in your front yard that says we're disarmed. And is that's what you're essentially doing to people, telling the criminals, okay, you're disarmed, they're disarmed, so go for it. Have at it.
Right, and let's step back for a second, and I'm using mock, if you will, on Envy here. You teach women who are victims of domestic violence how to defend themselves. Doesn't that fly in the face of virtually every bit of rhetoric, every bit of urban legend that folks who oppose the right to bear arms engage in? I mean, doesn't that defy all of that?
It does, and it goes against the anti-rhetoric, we'll say, because they need victims and they like to victimize people. And every time that there is a tragedy, they need to capitalize on that tragedy and put that person out as a victim. And so many times when I bring a woman or anybody into the range and we teach them how to shoot safely, the word they use is empowering. They feel empowered. They feel like they can take their life back. They feel safe. They feel protected because they can protect themselves. And that gets them out of the victim role and gets them into more of a self-control role. And that is my favorite part to see happen. But that is the worst part for the antis, because they need victims in order to continue to spew their fear and to get people to believe the fake narrative of gun ownership. Right.
And you're talking about people who are, excuse me, very, very often in a variety of communities. This is not just restricted to, if you will, the suburbs, the leafy the suburbs, if you will, of Rhode Island. But very often these folks are in some of our most marginalized communities. Some of these folks have faced challenges ranging from violence, if you will, to the financial challenges of today. And so who's really discriminating?
Oh, yeah, you have the LGBT community, they're the highest. They have the highest instances of being attacked. So we work a lot with that community because they need self-protection. And I've been watching the statistics through NSSF, which is the National Shooting Sports Foundation. And what they're finding right now is women have been the largest growing demographic in the firearm community for a very long time. But now it's getting more diverse. The diversity numbers are coming up. 58.2% are now African-American men, women, the Asians, Latinos, everybody. That group is starting to open up, and I think that's fabulous, because so far the anti-gunners are against the minorities having firearms, right. And they've actually discriminated against them, and now they haven't been able to capitalize on being a firearm owner. And I'm excited to see the numbers, and I welcome it, because everybody should be able to defend themselves. I don't care if you live out here in the woods near me or you live in downtown Providence. Everybody should have the right to be able to feel safe in their home, safe in their car, to be able to protect their family.
And that's really a natural right, isn't it? I mean, the right to bear arms is really a modern-day extension of the right to engage in self-defense. Why would we restrict people's ability to engage in self-defense? Does that make any sense at all?
No. No, it doesn't. And they don't even realize that they've actually, have been discriminating against. They've discriminated against the lower income. They've discriminated against people from where they live. It's just terrible. And the Second Amendment doesn't discriminate. And that's my favorite part about it. I love teaching everybody. We all of my fellow instructors love teaching everybody. We welcome everybody. When you walk onto the range, everybody's welcome. It does not matter what your race is. It doesn't matter your political belief. It doesn't matter. If you walk on the range with us, you are welcome. And that's something else that a lot of people are missing out of because of the fear-mongering antis.
Right. So let's do a little balance sheet here, if you will. You've got over, over 100 Rhode Island companies are involved in the manufacture, the sale, the distribution, the training of, as well as the repair of firearms. You've got these organizations that are involved in using them, hunt clubs, fish and game clubs, sporting clubs around Rhode Island, supporting countless acres of open space in a safe and responsible manner. By the way, I'm not aware, and maybe I missed it, but all of these trials and tribulations that folks who oppose the right to bear arms would preach, are they happening at any of these sporting clubs? I'm not aware of a case. Is there crime being generated, or are there any negative attributes whatsoever?
No, actually, I find it very interesting today that the Attorney General mentioned in a news article that illegal firearms are the driving factor for so much of the violent crime committed in Rhode Island communities. Right. Keyword, illegal firearms.
Yes.
Okay. So, and that's from his own words. You don't find law-abiding citizens committing these crimes. What you do find, though, is, and I'm a data girl, so when I see a crime committed and it uses a firearm, I usually go and check the person out, and you'll find that person has numerous other firearms charges or has already exhibited violence in their past and have had altercations, with law enforcement. It's not the law-abiding citizen that is committing these crimes, but there is a problem with these people getting early released, or they're getting these gun charges plea bargained out. And so often we also see that you'll have crimes committed and the gun charges, there should be a litany of gun charges that should be added to their case, and they're not even pursued. So why even make all these laws if you're not going to enforce the laws that you already have on the book, but you're just going to punish the law-abiding citizens who haven't done anything wrong?
Right. Here's irony for you. And by the way, the political and editorial comments that I make are the opinion of station management, not necessarily that of the guest. I've always found, and let me preface by this, probably 20 to 30% of the programming that we do on this show is a result of our whatever connections, affinity we have for the American Civil Liberties Union. So I am all about the civil rights. I am all about folks, if you will, being entitled to the best criminal defense they can have. But one of the leading state representatives is a gentleman by the name of Jason Knight. And full disclosure, a good friend of mine, Darrell Gould, ran against him for no other reason than to try to prevent Mr. Knight from inflicting himself upon us. Mr. Knight makes his living, if you will, engaging in very aggressive criminal defense of folks who are engaged in the illegal use of firearms. In fact, his website, don't delay, hire a former prosecutor. And Attorney Knight brings invaluable insights to your defense. He knows the ins and outs of the justice system with a total focus on criminal law. He's ready to do everything in his power to protect your rights, preserve your liberty, and guard your future. Just bear with me for the cold tonight, folks. Would that Mr. Knight be as equally focused on preserving your liberty, Brenda, and guarding your future?
Absolutely not.
I mean, Holy cow.
Have you gone to his testimonial page where he actually brags about getting people off of the gun charges? Go to the testimonial page on his website.
Yeah, let's.
So now, just to give the audience some background on this, this is one of your legislators who proposes gun legislation year after year after year, and then on his Facebook, on his professional website brags about how he gets criminals off of gun charges.
Yeah.
If that isn't, that's what we're dealing with here.
And again, I just want to say for the record that everybody is entitled to as aggressive a criminal defense as they can afford. I'm sorry, did I mention that? Oh, yeah. Because one of the sayings of the coalition is, in the halls of justice, justice will always be found in the halls. I just had to say that as an aside, because that type of hypocrisy is writ large throughout this conversation. And again, the overwhelming evidence in Rhode Island is that we are an extremely gun-safe state. And there are really no overwhelming need to engage in litigation. In fact, it would be great if, for example, we could just simply enforce the laws we already have on the books, as opposed to legislators grandstanding. What do we call it now? Pearl clutching, and projecting their sincerity by just passing laws after laws. And by the way, they're also, in a very effective way, a fundraising technique, because folks who are anti-2A have spawned numerous organizations mining money from the same set of folks, and they are part of the political establishment in this state. The political future for the 2A movement is, I'm not going to sugarcoat it, is somewhat clouded. And again, these are my words. The new guy in charge, meet the new boss, same as the old boss, Mr. Shikarchi, is not seemingly concerned about the civil rights of all Rhode Islanders. Certainly the Attorney General isn't. So you have an overwhelming presence in government of anti-2A folks. It's early in It's early in the season, if you will, the legislative season. So largely, with the exception of two file bills, we're largely dealing in rumor and projection. But what are some of the areas of focus, if you will, that the anti-2A community is going to be seizing this legislative session? Where do you see challenges coming?
Well, we hear they're coming after everything, basically. They want full registration. They want to limit our CCW. They want to do a magazine, a large capacity magazine, AR ban. They want to go for all of it. And they are actually doing a victory dance on their Facebook pages and their website, saying that they have enough votes to pass all of this legislation. And they've even gone so far as to try to backdoor if they not hearing testimony, and they've actually proposed, if they have enough sponsors on bills, to not even have them be heard, which thankfully the new speaker did not agree to as of yet. Mm-hmm. But I just want to take a minute to back this away from guns, because if we're affected in the Second Amendment community, if they come after our guns, they're not only it's still personal property. Okay, an average person, new gun owner, spends around $600 on their first firearm purchase. So that's not a little bit of money. So you have personal property. So what this legislation will do is it'll essentially open the door and set precedents for the government to be in control of your personal property. Mm-hmm. To confiscate it, that's some of the gun bills, to turn in certain firearms, there certain types of ammunition. So that's a dangerous, slippery slope. Once you open that door and you set precedents, so okay, you're going to take my guns today. Are we going to take your cell phone tomorrow? Are we going to take your car tomorrow? What other type of personal property are we going to confiscate next, if we've already opened the door and set the precedents for being able to go ahead and have the government take personal property that we already own? That's scary. and then whether you're a gun person or not, hikers, bikers, bird watchers, kayakers, swimmers, boaters, you're all going to lose on this too. So you have a vested interest in your outdoor activities. You need us to help you to continue to have the resources to be able to enjoy these outdoor activities, because we're the sole funders. So, it's not just a gun issue. It's not. This is a way bigger issue. Unemployment rates. There's a lot more at stake than just, I don't like guns, so it's okay, I'm not going to get involved. We need everybody involved, because this is an infringement, and it's just the beginning. I mean, we've seen how fast the First Amendment has been tanked with censorship and everything that's going on there. Now they're going to come in and work on the Second Amendment, and by taking the Second Amendment, that involves personal property, and then that just opens the door for them to do whatever they want to us. And I think it's dangerous, whether you're a gun owner, whether you believe I should have guns or anybody should have guns. It's more than a gun issue. This is a huge constitutional issue that people really need to be paying attention to.
Folks, if you're just joining us, wow. If you're just joining us, Brenda Jacob is joining us tonight. She is involved with a plethora, if you will, of groups focusing on everything from the environment to the protection of your constitutional rights. Federated Sportsmen, she was just elected as president of just this past fall, and congratulations on that. We've only got a few minutes left, but let's talk about Federated Sportsmen. Maybe you can do sort of a deep dive, do a little bit of an infomercial for them, and why it's a worthy organization. And then let's close out. I always talk about engaging in shameless self-promotion, but that's important right now, because with what I call the Zoomification of testimony that's happening in state houses across the country, not just Rhode Island, governments are embracing this because it's a way to limit the size and the scope of testimony. It's a way to control. It'd be a real challenge to do a repeat of 2 years ago, when thousands of Rhode Islanders came together en masse, all wearing gold, filling up the State House in a intentional show of strength. That becomes harder during COVID. That becomes much more difficult. So let's talk about the Federated, and then let's have a conversation about how folks can become involved, even if it has to be virtually.
Well, we are still having meetings. Of course, we have a COVID plan that goes with the meetings. But the Federated is, it originally started being representing of all the different clubs. We had gun clubs, horse clubs, kayaking clubs, trail clubs. So we represent gun clubs. So we represented clubs. Now we've recently opened up our membership to be individual members. Which is really good. And we've expanded a lot of our committees. So now we have a scholarship committee, ecology committees, education, fish and game. That's a huge thing too. And I lost my train of thought because I just thought of something else that I wanted to mention, that people don't even realize that one of the things that we do as sportsmen is we also pick up all of your the roadkill for deer. We're the ones that go out and clean the highways too. People don't realize that. And we're involved in herd management so that the deer don't overpopulate. But that's another story. But anyways, we'd like to open our new membership for everybody. We've started up a diversity committee, and last night we just had our first ladies group meeting where 12 of us got together, and that actually was fabulous because we got a lot of new information, a lot of new ideas. We're going to be running some educational shoots. We're going to be doing an empowering women event. We're doing ladies day at the range, date night at the range, youth day at the range. We're having new firearm owners orientation so that people that are new to firearms and are not quite comfortable with them, we're going to have safety lessons. We have instructors that are members. And the best part about it is we do a lot of fundraising, and most of the events that we put on are for free for the community, whether you're a member or not a member. So We have a lot to offer. We have a lot of room for growth. So I would really, like it if you considered joining our membership. And you can find out that information on our Facebook page and our website. Right now, our website's under construction, but we're getting it up and running because we're doing a little bit of regrouping. So, but feel free to message us on our Facebook page, and we'll certainly get out a membership. And if you have a club too, that is maybe a kayak club or a biking or hiking club, and you want to join and be part of our trails committee, that would be fabulous.
Wonderful. No, you folks do an astonishing job at really, again, being so fundamental to the lives we lead here in Rhode Island. Again, there's any one of a number of bills that may or may not pop up in the coming weeks. If the past is any indication, you'll have a couple of nights where they'll be all larded onto testimony back to back to back to back to back, or we like to say on the coalition, bumper to bumper to bumper to bumper. And of course, the impact of that is it makes it even more of a challenge for folks who have an alternative perspective, a viewpoint that they want to voice to their government, because it's literally one big mess. Throw it all up against the wall and see what we can accomplish here, despite the fact that, again, the Rhode Island Constitution. What's the catchphrase from that crazy Constitution that we supposedly are sworn to uphold? Brenda? What's that term about shall not be abridged? How does that read?
Shall not be infringed. The Rhode Island Constitution is very basic. It's shall not be infringed.
That's it. It's remarkably straightforward. Yet all of these attacks have been allowed to occur and continue to occur on them. So you folks have a number of ways that people can reach out and touch their politicians, if you will. How can they sign up for that? And have you got anything announced coming up, or you're just sort of?
We have a whole. We actually have a packet that's going to be going out shortly. But there's another way. Glenn Valentine and Rhode Island Firearm Owners League. If you text RI gun rights to 88202. That's going to get you put onto our text link, and that way when we have legislation coming up, our emergency alerts, you'll be able to get those alerts. And if you email us to federatedrinfo@gmail.com, you would be able to send us an email, and we'll put you on our email list, and then we'll send you out any information that we have of upcoming legislation.
Excellent. Well, again, congratulations, for what your organization and satellite organizations, if you will, and affiliated organizations accomplish it on a day-to-day basis, often as a volunteer, often using their own funds, in addition to bringing millions of dollars of federal money into the state through excise taxes on, well, quite frankly, your purchases, your and your community's purchases. Thank you for that, because, again, it's a critical component of the life we lead here in Rhode Island. Our lives would be far more shallow. We'd suffer a permanent loss if, in fact, all the activities, the clubs, the hunting clubs, the outdoorsmanship, fishing, all of that weren't part of our life in Rhode Island. Again, I have to stress that there's some beautiful parts of this country which represent the wild, if you will. Pennsylvania, Wyoming, the Pacific Northwest, the Southwest. There are other cities across this country which are spectacular places: San Francisco, New York, Los Angeles. There are so few areas of this country which manage to really incorporate both into the lifestyle of the everyday citizen. And we've got that here in Rhode Island. And we cannot allow one to suffer for the benefit of the other. So it's wonderful to see that you guys are hanging in there during the plague, as we call it here. I know that we're going to have you and Glenn and a variety of folks on to provide an effective counterpoint for some of the urban legends that are being passed as truths here in this state. So again, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having us. We really appreciate you helping us to get the word out.
Well, it's this, by the way, folks, this will be, we're taping this live tonight. It will be in general circulation around a variety of social media sites and or the sides of buildings and or being trailed by planes across Rhode Island, whatever we have to do. We've got a new governor in town. We need to make him understand that his success has to be part of our success. And our success is giving every Rhode Islander the opportunity to lead the lifestyle that they so choose, whether that be political, whether that be spiritual, whether that be, in this case, availing oneself of the natural beauty and the opportunities that affords here in Rhode Island. This group, I can guarantee you, will not be forgotten in the conversations that are held this year at what we lovingly call Halitosis Hall. all credit, by the way, to the great Rudy Cheeks. Thanks. We are the Coalition, loud and proud, outrage porn-free, civilly disobedient media, broadcasting live on the worldwide Coalition Radio Network. Well, at coalitionradionetwork.com, facebook.com/the Coalition Radio, on the mighty Twitter, at Coalition_radio, the mothership, the original Coalition site at coalitionradio.us. Listen, we just asked folks who listen to this show, you may love us, you may hate us, but follow us and like us, so we can either educate you or maybe even occasionally irritate you. But I will say this, independent media outlets are the future for this state. The mainstream media is crumbling around us, both in terms of resource and spirituality. So taking a few moments to share our work and to argue about our work and to talk about it means the world to us and allows us to provide an independent voice here in Rhode Island. Folks, stay tuned. We've got more programming coming up at 8:30. We'll be right back.